Imagine standing in a world where emotion is power, yet emotion is also the greatest weakness. Think about it. How many times have you lost control, not because of what someone did, but because of what you felt? Every outburst, every reaction, every moment of regret. It's all proof of one truth that thinkers like Machiavelli understood centuries ago. Those who let emotion rule them are ruled by others. But those who can feel nothing, or rather master what they feel, can control everything. In this video, we're going to explore one of the most misunderstood yet profoundly powerful ideas of human psychology and philosophy: emotional detachment as a path to control, strategy, and inner mastery. What did Machiavelli truly mean when he implied that cold logic often triumphs over sentiment? Was he advocating cruelty, or was he revealing an uncomfortable truth about human nature? That emotion clouds judgment, and that those who see clearly rule silently. By the end of this video, you'll discover not only the hidden wisdom behind Machiavelli's ruthless clarity, but also how this principle applies to your modern life, from relationships and career to self-discipline and spiritual evolution. And the final revelation, the one at the end, is the most powerful of all. It's the key that transforms this ancient philosophy into a tool for peace and personal mastery, not manipulation. Before we begin, if you're passionate about deep reflections from psychology, philosophy, and the art of human behavior, subscribe, leave a like, and share this video with those who seek truth beyond appearances. Because what you're about to hear might challenge everything you think you know about emotions, morality, and control. Now let's go back to Florence, 1513. A man, exiled, betrayed, and humiliated, sits down to write a book that will shake the moral foundation of the world. That man was Machiavelli. His book, The Prince, was not written for the weak-hearted. It was a guide for those who seek to understand how power truly operates, stripped of illusion, sentiment, and moral comfort. He observed that humans, though driven by ideals, are enslaved by emotions, and those who wish to lead, to command, or even to protect themselves must learn to rise above that emotional storm. But here's the paradox. To feel nothing does not mean to be heartless. It means to gain mastery over what controls you. As Machiavelli wrote, a man who wishes to act entirely up to his professions of virtue soon meets with what destroys him. What he meant was not that virtue is weakness, but that virtue, when untempered by reason, makes you vulnerable. How many times have you acted out of pity only to be betrayed? How many times has your kindness been mistaken for naivety? The world doesn't punish goodness. It punishes blind goodness. Machiavelli understood that power is not inherently evil. It's a mirror reflecting the strength or weakness of its holder. Those who can remain calm in chaos, who can observe instead of react, who can delay their feelings instead of obeying them, these are the ones who steer the world. But why do emotions control us so easily? Because they speak the language of the unconscious. Psychologist Carl Jung said that what we repress doesn't disappear. It controls us from the shadows. The man who believes he is rational, yet hasn't mastered his inner chaos, is often its slave. Machiavelli's realism was not born from cruelty. It was born from seeing human nature as it is, not as we wish it to be. Think about your own life. How many decisions have you regretted because they were driven by fear, anger, or desire? How often have you mistaken reaction for action? Emotional control is not the suppression of feeling. It is the transmutation of energy. The warrior feels fear, but does not let it decide. The leader feels compassion, but does not let it blind him. The sage feels pain, but transforms it into wisdom. When Machiavelli observed rulers, he noticed that those who succeeded did not necessarily have the best hearts. They had the clearest minds. Clarity requires distance, and distance requires detachment. This is why the phrase "feel nothing" is not nihilism. It is discipline. It is the understanding that emotion, when mastered, becomes a weapon of precision. But when left untamed, it becomes a leash around your soul. Ask yourself, what would change in your life if you stopped reacting to everything? If you could look at your emotions as signals, not commands? If you could stand in the storm and remain still? The one who can do that doesn't need to control others, because they already control themselves. And here lies the first great lesson of Machiavelli's wisdom. Control begins within. Before you can lead anyone, influence anyone, or shape any destiny, you must conquer the battlefield within your own mind. The enemy is not out there. It is the emotional tempest inside you. But this is just the beginning, because in the next part, we will dive deeper into the mechanics of emotional power, how rulers, leaders, and thinkers from Machiavelli to modern psychologists have used understanding of emotion to create influence. We'll uncover why emotional neutrality is the ultimate strength in a world addicted to reaction, and how you can begin mastering it today. When Machiavelli studied the movements of kings and the downfall of empires, he noticed something that few dared to admit. Emotion is the invisible architect of human failure. Behind every war, every betrayal, every ruined kingdom, there was always someone who could not master what they felt. Love turned to obsession, fear turned to paranoia, pride turned to blindness. And yet those who stood above such impulses, those who could pause, think, and act with reason, carved their names into history. But the mastery of emotion is not just a political skill, it is a spiritual art. It's the art of separating yourself from the inner storm without losing your humanity. The Stoics of ancient Greece knew this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What Machiavelli suggested through politics, the Stoics taught through philosophy. To control everything, you must first feel nothing, not because emotion is evil, but because attachment to it is slavery. Think about your daily life. You wake up, check your phone, see a message that makes you angry, and your mood is gone for the day. A stranger's comment, a co-worker's tone, a loved one's silence. You become a puppet on invisible strings. But who is pulling them? Not the other person. It's the emotion itself. You are reacting to a shadow. The moment you recognize this, a subtle but powerful shift begins. You are no longer the victim of emotion, but its observer. This is where Machiavelli's philosophy meets psychology. Modern neuroscience reveals that the emotional brain, the amygdala, reacts before the rational mind can respond. When we are angry, fearful, or infatuated, the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic and decision-making, shuts down. We literally lose the ability to think clearly. The one who can pause before reacting, who can let the emotional wave pass, gains something extraordinary: choice. And choice is power. Machiavelli understood this instinctively. He wrote that a ruler must appear compassionate, faithful, and kind, but never let those emotions dictate his actions. At first glance, that sounds manipulative, but in truth, he was describing emotional sovereignty. When you act out of choice, not impulse, you become unpredictable, and thus untouchable. The manipulator can only control the emotional. The calm mind is a mirror in which deceit cannot hide. Let's look at an example from history. Consider Emperor Augustus of Rome. He inherited a nation shattered by civil war, betrayal, and chaos. Yet through patience and emotional restraint, he built one of the longest-lasting empires in history. He forgave enemies he could have destroyed, waited years before taking revenge, and acted when others least expected it. His strength was not in force, but in timing. He ruled not because he felt nothing, but because he felt everything, and still chose to act from reason. This is the paradox at the heart of control. You cannot suppress what you do not understand. To master emotion, you must first witness it without judgment. Every emotion is a messenger. Fear says, "Protect yourself." Anger says, "Something is unjust." Desire says, "There is something missing." But the wise do not obey these voices blindly. They listen, learn, and respond consciously. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." What we call fate is often just emotional automation. When you keep falling for the same kind of person, repeating the same arguments or making the same mistakes, it's not destiny, it's programming. Emotional control means rewriting that script. So how do we begin to practice this Machiavellian stillness? The first step is awareness. Observe your emotions as if they belong to someone else. When anger arises, don't say, "I am angry." Say, "Anger is present." This simple shift creates a distance between you and the emotion. Suddenly, the emotion is no longer your identity. It's an experience passing through you. The second step is delay. Machiavelli believed in strategic patience, knowing that time is often the most powerful weapon. Before you react, wait. Count to 10. Breathe. Walk away. In those moments of pause, clarity returns. The impulsive man destroys in seconds what the wise man builds in years. The third step is discernment. Not every feeling deserves expression. Some emotions are designed to trap you. The world often rewards outrage, vanity, and victimhood because they are profitable. But silence, composure, and strategy, those qualities make others uncomfortable because they reveal your independence. Ask yourself, what would happen if, instead of trying to win every argument, you simply observed it? If instead of proving your worth, you acted with quiet confidence? Those who react are predictable. Those who are predictable can be controlled. But those who remain centered, who respond rather than react, possess a power that others cannot comprehend. The modern world glorifies feeling. Follow your heart, speak your truth, never hold back. But the ancients knew that unrestrained emotion is the beginning of chaos. To feel nothing doesn't mean to kill your heart. It means to free it from manipulation. Only a calm heart can love deeply. Only a steady mind can see clearly. And this is the second great lesson of Machiavelli's wisdom. Control is not about domination over others. It's about liberation from yourself. When you stop being a slave to reaction, you begin to see life as it is, not as your emotions distort it. But there's more. In the next part, we'll go further, into the architecture of power itself. We'll explore how understanding emotion allows some to rule nations, shape culture, and influence billions, and how you can apply the same psychological principles to command your own destiny. To truly understand Machiavelli's vision of control, we must move beyond the personal and look at how emotion shapes the collective. Power has always been built on one principle: control perception, and you control reality. Every great ruler, general, or philosopher who mastered this knew that emotions move crowds faster than truth ever could. And yet, the ones who remained untouched by that same emotional tide became the true architects of destiny. Think of the greatest leaders of history: Alexander the Great, Napoleon Bonaparte, Queen Elizabeth I. What set them apart was not only ambition or intellect, but their ability to remain composed while the world around them burned with passion. They used the emotions of others as instruments, but refused to let their own hearts dictate their actions. This is the essence of Machiavellian power: influence through detachment. Machiavelli never said one should lack emotion, only that one should never depend on it. In The Prince, he wrote that a wise ruler should not keep faith when such observance may be turned against him. At first glance, this seems cynical, but if we look deeper, it reflects a profound psychological truth. Those who rely on emotion, loyalty, or affection as their foundation of control will always be betrayed by them, because emotion is fleeting and human nature is unpredictable. To control everything, one must build on something more stable than feeling, on awareness. This is not about manipulation. It's about understanding how emotion governs human behavior. Machiavelli's genius was in recognizing patterns. He observed that people crave certainty more than truth, comfort more than freedom, and the illusion of goodness more than the weight of reality. By appealing to these emotional instincts, rulers maintained order, while the masses believed they were free. Modern psychology echoes this insight. Behavioral scientists have shown that emotion drives nearly all decision-making. The rational mind justifies what the emotional mind has already decided. Marketing, politics, even religion, all of them, at their core, are systems of emotional influence. The powerful do not suppress emotion. They study it. They speak to it. They guide it. But here lies the question: can you learn to do the same? Not to manipulate others, but to master your own responses to the emotional currents of the world. Because if you can, you rise above the collective storm. You become, in the words of Friedrich Nietzsche, the calm eye in the hurricane of existence. To reach that state, you must understand how emotion is used to shape perception. Consider how fear is used to control societies. In every era, leaders have amplified fear to unite or divide populations. During times of uncertainty, emotion becomes the easiest tool of command. Machiavelli warned rulers that men are driven by two principal impulses: love and fear. But he also noted that fear is more reliable because love is fragile. Now ask yourself, how often are your own decisions driven by fear? Fear of rejection, fear of loss, fear of judgment. Every time you obey fear, you give away control. The modern world feeds this constantly. News headlines, social media outrage, economic anxiety. You are being trained to feel, not to think. To be ruled, not to rule. Emotional control then becomes the last true rebellion. The Stoics called it apatheia, a state beyond passion, not of coldness but of inner harmony. When you reach this state, the chaos of the world no longer enters you. You see manipulation for what it is, a reflection of collective immaturity. Machiavelli understood that the masses would always be ruled by their hearts, but the one who sees through emotion is the one who shapes the direction of history. Let's take a modern example. Think of leaders or influencers who maintain calm in crisis. While others panic, they move with clarity. This calmness draws people in because humans instinctively seek stability. The one who feels least in chaos becomes the anchor for everyone else. That is not magic, it's psychology. Control your emotions, and people will entrust you with theirs. But there's another layer, a moral one. Many accuse Machiavelli of teaching manipulation or deceit. Yet if you read his writings carefully, he was not praising cruelty. He was describing reality. His realism was a mirror, not a manifesto. He exposed how power truly operates so that the wise could protect themselves from illusion. So what can we take from this today? That emotional mastery is not the path to tyranny, but to freedom. When you no longer need others to validate your worth, you are no longer controllable. When you can face fear and remain steady, the world cannot shake you. You stop being a pawn in the emotional chess game and become the player. Ask yourself, how many times has your peace been stolen by something that didn't deserve it? A comment online, a mistake at work, a person who misunderstood you. What if, instead of reacting, you smiled inwardly, knowing that your composure is your power? That's when you truly begin to understand what Machiavelli meant. Emotional neutrality is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength. The one who can remain calm amidst provocation has already won. The silent man in a room full of noise holds all the authority. The leader who listens while others shout already possesses the upper hand. And here lies the third great lesson of Machiavelli's wisdom. Emotion is energy, and energy, when harnessed consciously, becomes power. The goal is not to suppress it, but to channel it. Anger becomes determination. Fear becomes alertness. Pain becomes clarity. That is true alchemy, the transmutation of emotion into strength. In the final part, we will reveal the ultimate secret, the one Machiavelli never stated directly, but which lies hidden beneath his philosophy. It is the realization that beyond control, beyond power, and beyond detachment, there is something even greater, a mastery that brings not dominance, but peace. And once you understand this final truth, feel nothing, control everything, takes on an entirely different meaning, one that could change the way you live forever. There is a reason why the phrase "feel nothing, control everything" sounds both empowering and unsettling. It touches the deepest conflict within the human spirit, the struggle between emotion and awareness, between heart and reason, between chaos and order. But the truth that Machiavelli hinted at, and that the greatest minds after him discovered, is that the ultimate control is not over others. It is mastery over yourself. Let's return to the man himself. Niccolò Machiavelli lived through betrayal, imprisonment, torture, and exile. Everything he had built collapsed. Yet, instead of drowning in despair, he turned his suffering into clarity. In a small farmhouse outside Florence, he wrote, "The Prince." Many called it cynical. Few understood that it was born not from ambition, but from observation. He had seen how fragile human loyalty was, how emotions ruled even the wisest of men, and how power belonged not to the strongest, but to the most composed. But there is something deeper here, something that goes beyond politics. Because what Machiavelli described as a strategy for rulers, the mystics of every age described as a path to enlightenment. The Buddhist seeks detachment from desire. The Stoic seeks indifference to fortune. The warrior seeks stillness in battle. The philosopher seeks clarity beyond illusion. Different languages, one truth. Only the mind that has conquered its emotions can see reality as it is. And when you see clearly, control is no longer a weapon. It becomes peace. To feel nothing is not to become numb, but to feel everything without being enslaved by it. Imagine standing before anger and saying, "I see you," facing fear and saying, "You will not move me," meeting sadness and whispering, "You may stay, but you will not rule. That is true control. Not coldness, but consciousness. This is what the world misunderstands about Machiavelli. His philosophy was not about cruelty, but about lucidity. He stripped the illusions of morality to reveal the mechanisms of human nature. And if you dare to look honestly, you will see that his lessons apply not just to rulers, but to anyone who wants to live free from manipulation, weakness, and inner conflict. But there is a final step in this journey, a truth that transcends Machiavelli himself. Because control, when fully mastered, dissolves, the one who truly controls no longer needs to control. When you stop being moved by the chaos of others, the world stops being your battlefield and becomes your reflection. You no longer need to dominate, you simply understand. This is what the philosopher Epictetus meant when he said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Freedom and control are not opposites. They are the same realization seen from different sides. Control is the beginning. Freedom is the end. You learn to master emotion, not to suppress it, but to transcend it. Think about it. When you react, you are a prisoner. When you observe, you are free. When you need to prove something, you are still attached. But when you no longer need the world to be any different from what it is, you move from control to command. You become unshakable, untouchable, unmanipulable. The one who cannot be provoked cannot be defeated. Look at the great spiritual masters, Buddha, Jesus, Marcus Aurelius, even modern thinkers like Viktor Frankl. Each faced unimaginable trials yet remained calm. Their peace was not weakness, it was supreme control. Frankl, imprisoned in a concentration camp, wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. That is what it truly means to control everything. The world will always test you, people will disappoint you, plans will collapse. But if you have trained your mind to stay centered, nothing can touch your essence. You become like the mountain that watches storms pass, knowing none of them can alter its shape. Ask yourself now, how different would your life be if you mastered this? If you stopped being ruled by anger, jealousy, anxiety, and need, if every emotion became an opportunity for awareness instead of reaction, that is when the shift happens. When you realize that power over others is small, but power over yourself is infinite, and that is the final revelation, the most powerful truth of all. Machiavelli's words were never meant to turn you into a tyrant. They were meant to awaken the sovereign within you, to show you that control is not dominance, but self-command. To feel nothing is not to be empty, but to be full of presence. To control everything is not to rule the world, but to rule your mind. The true meaning of feel nothing, control everything is not manipulation, it is mastery. It is the path from reaction to awareness, from dependence to strength, from illusion to truth. And when you reach that level of inner sovereignty, you no longer fear life, because you have become one with it. Machiavelli taught the rulers of nations how to control empires. But his greatest lesson, hidden beneath layers of politics and pragmatism, was always about ruling the only kingdom that truly matters, the one within. So as this journey ends, remember, the world belongs to those who remain calm when others lose themselves, the one who feels deeply yet shows restraint, who acts with patience when others rush, who observes instead of reacts. That is the one who truly commands the world. In the silence between feeling and control lies your greatest power. Master it, and nothing, no chaos, no betrayal, no storm, can touch you again. Thanks for looking.